Hello, I'm Carmen Smith, and I am absolutely delighted to tell about the Lehigh stone that we have and how we got it. It'd be my pleasure. It's kind of like the gospel. Who wants to be exclusive about the gospel? It's something you want to share with everyone. That's how I feel about this Lehigh stone. So let me tell you about it. First, I'll tell you how we got it. Uh, my brother-in-law, Ross Christensen, came to one of those BYU study tours, and my mother heard it, and she was just raving about it. So I came to him and I said, "Oh, Ross, tell me about it." And he just gasped and looked at me, and I said, "Well, how about 5 minutes?" And he said, "All right." And so he gave me 5 minutes, and by then I was interested. And I said, "All right, now where can I get more information?" And he told me. And wasn't very long till in in his um, in his talk with me, he told me that how they had got it and how the BYU group had gone down to Mexico and made a casting, and the first one was not usable. That didn't turn out well, and that they had gone and made another one. And I said, "What happened to the first one?" "Oh, he says it's stored up there." And so I said, "Well, what about giving it to us?" "Oh," he said, "I'd have to ask Dr. Jakeman." Well, Dr. Jakeman was attached to this Lehigh stone as much as any father is to his baby. He couldn't let it go. But when they moved from one building to another, he remembered our request, and he said, if we would come up and get it, and if we would give them the something like $35 that was the material in it, we could have it. It came right at Christmas time, and we didn't have our cards out. We weren't ready or anything. We got in the pickup, and there was all the BYU students were having trouble getting through the snow because of the awful storm. We piled on all the clothes we owned, food, water, and chains, and took off. It was with a great deal of satisfaction that we got hold of it and brought it down. And would you like to look at it now? Let's see, or should I tell you where it came from? Let's look at it. How's that? Would you like to do that now? Well, this is what the Mormons call the Lehigh stone. It's our great pleasure to have it. It's our great pleasure to share it. I'll tell you a little bit about its background, not necessarily how we got it. In 1939, a man named Culebro, probably a person of Mexican nationality, discovered the stone down in Chiapas. Isapa, the little town where it is found in the very southernmost part of Mexico, was so remote that there were no roads to it. I don't remember if there was even airplane access, but there were no roads to it. There is both airplane and road access to it now. But it was so far away from the center of government that it was a precarious and ticklish position to go in there and even speak to the mayor. His life was threatened because of his association with the people that came in. I hardly know where to begin. But this, according to Dr. Jakeman, is a picture, an illustration of Lehi's dream in the Book of Mormon. Now, if you haven't heard of Lehi's dream, you should before you should go study it. It is Lehi had the dream. He saw the rolling river. He saw the tree of life and the people trying to get to it and the delicious fruit that it had and the magnificent building across the stream that tempted everyone. And this, according to Dr. Jakeman, illustrates that particular dream. Now, only the Mormons believe that, because the rest of the world knows that, as they say, there ain't no angels. Therefore, anything that has to do with the Book of Mormon is absolutely fake. But the scientific world agrees on 2 points. One of them is that this carving, by its style, can be dated, just as women's styles can be dated. We know about what we wore in the 60s and the 20s and the 1890s, because the style tells. The style tells that this was carved. Of course, they can't tell the exact year, but say 100, 200, 100 BC, 200 AD. If you'll think for a moment what was happening on our continent at that time, that was when Jesus had just come, and there was a beautiful spiritual awakening. There was peace, and everyone was nearer celestial than they'd ever been before. The other consensus of scientific opinion is that there is very definitely a Near Eastern influence in this, between this carving, and similarity between this carving and those that are produced in the Near East. I think I have one here. This is one. I don't think there's another one. You can cut this part out. Yes. This one is Assyrian, as I believe, and there are a number of them that I could show you, but notice that the two so-called cherubim, or cherubim as they say, are bird-headed. That one wing is up, one wing is down. The face is profile. The shoulders are straight toward you. They carry something that looks like a pine cone, perhaps. What they're doing is debatable, whether they are sprinkling it, whether they are, not propagating. What's that thing when they pollinating? They may be pollinating it. They may be sprinkling water from here, but they do carry a pointed object and tassel bags, and their feet are in tandem. They are taking care of a tree in the middle. I could show another one. But now, since we are not of the culture of South America, you might have a little difficulty pointing this out. But let me show you. Do you see the two mandibles of the bird bill right here? Do you see the bag? Do you see the 2 feet in tandem, the two of them, the tree in the middle? Do you see one wing up and one wing down? Do you see the pointed object? This are too many unexpected similarities not to make them convince them that there is some connection between the people who carved this carving and the people of the Near East. This is quite a surprise. That is as far as the so-called scientific world will bend toward what Dr. Jakeman has to say about this carving. At first, it was thought it was a market scene. Here we are discussing the price of beans, and we're all under a tree, and that's not such a bad idea. But there are several things that destroy that theory. The first thing is that we have an incense burner, and smoke is ascending. When this happens, we are talking about something very important and very sacred. Past that, the unexpected similarities to the Book of Mormon story just entirely precluded ever being anything about beans. Here is a woman. If you can see, here's her eye, here's her mouth, here's the headdress hanging down, here's her arm, and she is holding a peculiar looking carving or glyph over this man. She has on her head a sort of a horn and feathers headdress. We will look at the horn and feathers headdress of I started in the wrong place. On the other side. This is an enlarged picture of Sarah over on the Lehi stone. And this is a picture of the girl on King Tut's throne chair. King Tut, this is his chair that was found in his tomb. And there are some colored pictures up here in here also, but they're small. But King Tut died when he was King Tutankhamun died when he was 18 years old, and so his wife was called Princess. And the picture on his throne chair shows her in front of him, well, ministering to him or taking care of him. Would you notice a similarity between her headdress and this one? This one does not have the sun disk, but notice in here the configuration. Notice the so-called horns. Notice the feathers. Did you know that if you look in the Bible and look up the name Sarah, they didn't, Sarah was not a name that didn't have meaning. In the Bible, all the names had meaning. The meaning of Sarah is princess. So we have on the Lehi stone a woman who doesn't have Sarah printed on it because they are not Americans and they have not learned our language. But they have designated her as well as if they had written Sarah. They have put princess on her headdress. I will go to Lehi next. This is Lehi. On top of him, over him, she holds him. You see a very long snout. Do you see an eye? Do you see a nose? Do you see an upper lip? Do you see gums? Do you see teeth? Doesn't have much of a chin, but it has the cheek. If you look up, shouldn't start out with Lehi. Hope you're going to. I have enlarged the same glyph here. Here is the pointed snout, the eye, the nose, the upper lip, the gums, the teeth, and not very much chin. In the Mayas, the cheek. These are also cheek representations. They're a little bit more difficult to understand than this, but they are all cheek. If you're a Maya, you can only glance at this and see what it is, but if you showed a 3-year-old child a letter A or a letter B, they do not comprehend anything, and therefore you're not being Maya. You might not comprehend these as quickly as you would if you were a Maya. This one has his mouth open. Now, Lehi, the name Lehi. Should you go look in the Bible dictionary or just to see what the name Lehi means? Guess what it means? It means jawbone. It means cheek. That is where the Valley of Lehi got its name when Samson killed all the Philistines with the jawbone of an ass. We have here not Lehi because they are not Americans, but we have his name as carefully put on there as if they had written Lehi. Now, this is an old man. He's very carefully delineated. He has the striped apparel of a one of rank. Further, he has the pointed cap. I have a book in there of biblical views that shows King Zedekiah taken captive, and he has this kind of a cap on him because it's a rank of elevated person of elevated rank. Because he is explaining it. See, his wife supports him. He is explaining it to one person at least who has his back to the tree. He has somewhat of a pointed cap. He's not very well done. But there's his arm, and here he sits in Near Eastern fashion. Lehi sits on a cushion, Near Eastern fashion. These just sit down. This is another person with his back to the tree. This one is the older of these people because he has in front of him the thing that designates his right as a senior son. This is called the little household god, a teraphim. This is what Rachel took from her father when she left to go back to Jacob's home. When she took that, this gave Jacob the right to Laban's property, which he probably didn't claim, but she took the household god, which was very important. These two have their backs to the tree. The largest person on here is this one here. He has a beard. He has what they call a uraeus. This shows in all the old Egyptian statues. It is the king. The king has that put on there. He has a fancy headdress too. He is also explaining it to them as Nephi explained the Lehi's dream to his brother, and he is also with a stylus recording it on a rock or a piece of metal or whatever that is. This headdress signifies a grain god. Here is the actual symbol of a grain god. Now, the name Nephi is not a Jewish name, but it is an Egyptian name, except in Egypt, the name is written Nepri. And in those Near Eastern languages, what's important is not the vowels, but the consonants. And if you have that R in there, that excludes it immediately. So that posed quite a problem until someone told Dr. Jakeman, but don't you know that the R is silent? And also that the Nepri, the P is also aspirated. This means that you let air out of your mouth as you say it. Now, if you have any P and you still let air pass through your lips, you get Nephi. You have to get a F sound. Now, don't you think that boy Joseph Smith was pretty smart when instead of writing Nephi, N-E-P-I, he wrote it N-E with the P in there, but with the F sound, Nephi. That was pretty lucky now, wasn't it? These others are also symbols of Maya symbols of the grain god. Oh, these are symbols of grain god. I'm not going to go into it, but they are. But this is this one. This man here, this faceless man, I hope you can see him. When this was originally made, the original stone has a curve right here. And this part right here turns back. And when they made it at BYU, they laid the mold, the rubber mold, flat on the cement floor, I suppose, and poured the mold in, poured the solution, the goo or cement into it. Well, of course, it flattened it. And it also made wrinkles in it. There's wrinkles up here in it. And this is what caused them to reject it. But this one, being on the curve, too many little Maya people passed by and rubbed him off with their shoulders. He got obliterated. But he did support Nephi. This would be Sam. And if you remember Haile Selassie, who said he was a direct descendant of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, to show his authority, his kingly status, he always appeared with a black umbrella. An umbrella was a sign of authority. Now, here is Sam helping Nephi have the authority, although he is not the oldest. This creates a paradox in Jewish family setup, because the oldest one is always the one who is the leader. And there is an old legend comes from South America that says that our ancestors were cheated out of our inheritance by a younger brother. There are over 200 unexpected similarities between this stone, this carving, and Lehi's dream. Every single element mentioned in Lehi's dream is here with the exception of one. And if I could pull this jasmine over to the side, you'd see where there is a broken off place. It shows very well on the original stone, the picture of the original stone that appeared in the is that going to show on this? It will, all right. This right here shows the rough area. See how smooth it is right here? And it's across the river. See the river going up here? And across the river is this magnificent building. And it is knocked off there. You see the rough places. Okay. Except for that one element, every single thing that Lehi mentions in the dream is here. Here is the hooded angel, the angel who brought him to the tree. He is not identified because they put a hood on him. That is the reason he's identified. Some people came to the tree, partook of the fruit, were very pleased, but soon turned their back on it. This one has in his hand a piece of the fruit. This, do you see this man here? And do you see his elaborate headdress falling down his back? Feathers, for some reason, were very attractive and appealing to the South Americans. You know, King Kamehameha's cloak was entirely made of feathers. We've had some experiences. Omar's uncle took some feathers down there, peacock feathers, and he said, why, those Indians would sell their souls for those feathers. These feathers that hang way down there are from the Quetzal bird. And stop his back. See how far they droop? All the way down, way past his shoulders, go way up in the air. Come from the Quetzal bird. And I have here a picture. It's called I suppose that's Trogan, how you say it. And this is a picture of the bird in color, except there was not room to put the bird's tail as long as it was. But this is a real bird stuffed. Do you see how long those feathers droop? These would come down to about like this. Beautiful feathers. And I think one of the reasons that it was called Quetzal bird, or in connection with the feathered serpent, was that when it flew, its curved tail, as it went forward, would raise up the back of it. You can see how the aerodynamics would raise it. And so that would knock the bird down. Then it would fly up again. So as it flew, it would go like this, like a serpent. See? The feathered serpent. And that's what partly got the name of Quetzalcoatl as a symbol of Jesus down in Mexico. This is supposed to be a farmer coming from a field. He goes down there on the original. You can see the path that he goes to get down here on to the path by the side of the iron rod. And if he's not careful, he will fall into the river. Now, Lehi saw this as a beautiful fountain, but Nephi corrected him and says, oh no, it was a fountain, but it was filthy water. And the strange thing is, you don't see any debris over here. But the farther it goes, the more there is something in the water, so that it gets filthier and filthier. Nobody knows what these tents are. They had no idea of what that was. But one time when my husband was standing here one day talking about this and pointed out this field, some returned missionary sitting over here just began to jump up and down on his seat. And my husband could hardly finish his sentence. And then he called on him. He says, I want to tell you that I'm a returned missionary. And I think he said from China. It was from the Orient. And he said, and this happens to be the exact symbol of a field. He was very excited. These things that are above the ground, who's not seated on the ground, are not mortal. They are representational things. This big dragon, you see an eye, you see a nose, you see gums, you see the teeth, is a symbol of the world. They always did things in pairs if those things had to be balanced, one on one side and one on the other. So although there's only one world, there are two dragons. Now, my husband used to love to say, if you were going to depict darkness, how would you depict darkness? He said, if you made the whole thing dark, you couldn't show anything. But if you wanted to depict darkness, how would you do it? And he says, he thinks that the artist here was extremely clever because in Lehi's dream it says, the fiery darts of the adversary blind the eyes and something the heart. Shame on me for not knowing it, for not being able to quote it. And which creates darkness in the world. My husband was so excited to say, can you think of anything more illustrative than two little hummingbirds like fiery darts picking out the eyes of the world and creating darkness? That I admit, I think that's just very clever. Up above here where you can't see, there is a jaguar mask which had religious significance, and the tree is very life-giving because it has fish and the water. Water was always life-giving. See those two fish? And over here there are water birds, ducks and swans or herons. Anyway, water birds. I have tried to cover this in as short a time as I could, and yet try not to leave out too much. But I just want to tell anyone that happens to see this video that to me, this very rich artistic, it's as rich a carving as a type of art as I've ever seen. There's not hardly an inch that isn't covered, and yet is so significant and full of meaning. What does the tree of life mean to you? In the Book of Mormon, it said it's the plan of salvation. It is the love of God. It is the gospel in the earth. And what better expression of our Heavenly Father's love could He be than to give you the gospel whereby you could use it to get back to Him? This also has meanings to me with the Garden of Eden. And I have never been able to fathom that to my satisfaction. But the spiritual significance of the Lehi's dream is something that many people, I think, fail to recognize. And to me, it's one of the most beautiful things in the Book of Mormon. I am so glad to share anything in the gospel, this Lehi stone or anything else, with anyone who wants to know anything about the gospel. And I express my gratitude for having been able to do this as well as I have done it. And I hope you like it.